It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, we are Red Eye Radio. I'm Gary McNamara. He's Eric Harley. All right, so some new polling out there.
Yeah?
All this chit-chat about Russia collusion. I will say this, though. There seems to be a anticipation or frustration from Republicans, at least online, saying, stop the talking, indict.
Yeah.
I understand where that comes from. When you do this every single day, and you're like, we've been covering the whole Russia collusion hoax since January 2nd, 2017.
Oh, man.
Wow. That seems so pre-COVID.
That's crazy.
But polling out there, because that's the thing, do the American public care? You'll hear Democrats say, it's old news, the Democrats, it's old news, Americans don't care. Well, the latest polling, 2/3 of voters, 65%, are following declassified releases over the past month by the National Director of Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, and Senator Chuck Grassley very closely. Very closely or somewhat closely. 32% very closely, somewhat closely 33%. Let me just see here. The poll of 1,172 likely voters conducted July 29th through the 31st shows 54% believe Obama administration officials committed serious crimes in manipulating intelligence, with 37% saying it's very likely and 17% saying it's somewhat likely. A staggering, are you ready for this now?
Yeah.
Because this is interesting. 54% believe Obama administration officials committed serious crimes in manipulating intelligence. 54%.
Wow.
69% agree it is critical that the perpetrators be held accountable for the survival of our country. When you put it that way, when you ask the question that way, 69% agree it is critical that the perpetrators be held accountable for the survival of our country. Even more disturbing for Democrats is it's not just Republicans who are concerned. The poll showed 56% of Democrats are following the investigation.
Wow.
And for Democrats, 32% believe serious crimes were committed. That's of Democrats. 32% were committed, and 59% agree the perpetrators must be held accountable. Now, the problem is, of the 59%, 58% believe Trump should be held accountable.
Well,
that's the problem. The respective Republican comparison is 75% are following it, 83% believe serious crimes were committed, and 86% agree the perpetrators must be held accountable. Hispanics are more cynical about the scandal than either black or white voters, with 66% saying serious crimes were committed, 74% wanting accountability, compared to 51% and 65% respectively for blacks, and 53% and 69% respectively for whites. But everybody is over the 50% mark. Everyone's over the 50% mark when it comes to serious crimes were committed. That's interesting. Men are more concerned than women, 74% versus 59% following the stories closely, 60 versus 49 believing there is serious criminality, and 72 to 66 favoring accountability. So there's where we are there. We'll see where that goes.
Those are surprising numbers, as long as they don't fall into the, yeah, but Trump should go to jail for everything to throw all the bums out kind of, thing.
No, that'd be a Richard Burr concert.
Yeah.
Richard Burr show.
Yeah.
To make sure you get both sides.
Right. Of course. Bill
Burr. Did I say Richard Burr?
I was going to wonder.
Did I say
his
Richard?
brother doing
Did I
comedy
say
or something?
Richard?
You said Richard Burr.
I have no idea where I came up with Richard Burr. Bill Burr. Not Bill Barr, Bill Burr.
Right. A Bill Barr concert would be boring. Well, we think the problem was that during the first administration, that blah, blah, blah. Why are you walking out? But then also, okay, let's say it's fairly accurate. Is it because so much time has passed with Obama? If the left is done with everybody who's not, because, in 2008, he was a radical. He's no longer a radical. His former chief of staff is saying that the liberal transgender movement basically can't stand. So have they just moved on and said, yeah, if he did something wrong, there should be something done about it?
You and I have talked about it. There seems to be no love for the Obamas anymore. That's gone. I mean, isn't it amazing?
Even it's rumored that between the Obamas, there's no love for the Obamas.
Is it just time? Because remember, you had remember you had some MAGA people insulting Reagan. It wasn't that great,
Yeah.
They point to immigration, the deal that he made. But
yeah,
is that just time?
No, I think it is. I think it is to a large extent. I think, again, because for the left, it's about, probably for both sides, it's about, number one, usefulness. But also it is a measurement of the impact that they had at the time. Because by the end of Obama's second term, there were people on the left saying, he didn't really get anything done. He didn't do anything for us. Hillary didn't do anything for us. So it's only a matter of time before you're no longer of use to them. So they don't care about your legacy. Now, the question is, all right, on this front, how many believe that he would actually, because I don't believe he's going to go to jail. Barack Obama's not going to jail over the Russian hoax thing. I know a lot of people are screaming at the radio, he should go to jail. Nobody is above the law. I don't see a former president going to jail for it. Brennan, Clapper, lying under oath, there may be some kind of punishment coming their way. We'll see how far it goes.
Comey.
We'll see where that goes. But, and also there's the fact that this is a non-binding, in terms of polls, it's this non-binding response. They're not calling for this. They're just saying, if it happens, it happens. Basically, it's not like a political movement, really. I think they're just generally saying in a populist way, well, if he did something wrong, then there should be there should be somebody that does something about it. Because if they don't care about his legacy and that actually does get to that point, then, okay, well, whatever, but we're done with him.
Yeah, I really think, though, that when you actually sit down, you and I, a couple weeks ago, spent like 90 minutes just explaining the first part of the the conspiracy,
Mm-hmm.
whatever you would, because it did start out as a conspiracy.
Yeah.
We now know that it did, and that's because Brennan told Obama, Biden, Comey, they all knew what Hillary was going to do. They all knew it,
Right.
and ignored it, knowing what she was going to do, and went after Trump, knowing that she was setting up Trump.
Right.
That, to me, is an amazing story. When you go through it all as to what has been done, I'm just thinking of TV shows, whether it's, that I've been watching, because I didn't really, it's amazing how much TV I haven't watched in the last, entertainment TV in the last 25 years that I'm catching up on. But whether it's a Criminal Intent or any of those shows, Miami or NCIS, all these shows where you connect the dots and it gets complicated as to what the crime is. All these different shows on Netflix.
Yeah.
A Reacher, for example.
Yeah.
Even Reacher explaining everything. The Lincoln Lawyer.
Yeah.
That movie, and then the series and everything. Suits. Everything gets to be. I'm amazed at the writing and how complicated it is and how interested the audience is. If you connect the dots to the Russia collusion hoax, if you weren't paying attention, and years later now you look at this and you say, "Oh my God," because it is just. And knowing what other scandals have happened in American history, you shake your head. You say, how could this have continued to go on for so long? Why didn't somebody come up and say, stop it? And if you're somebody on the left, you may be going, all right, Hillary, what a great con it was that she put on Trump. You may be saying that.
Mm-hmm.
If you are, then clearly you don't care about the democracy, but you may be saying that.
Yeah. Sure.
And so,
no, I think it's a good point that, look, if they can, because we don't believe people are stupid. It's do they have the will to follow along? The Russian hoax thing is very involved, and it was very Clinton-esque. It was a very sophisticated plan from beginning to end. And, you do have to keep notes, because the difference, I guess, would be that it's not all resolved within 1 hour like an SUV, Law and Order SUV or SUV, SVU, or the one about cars and trucks, Law and Order SUV.
Or Law and Order EV.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it would be today. A Law and Order episode is going to be resolved in an hour. Well, again, you got to go back to 2016 for this one. And you've got to follow along from the very beginning. I think people are capable of it. Do they have the attention span and the will to do that? Do they have the attention span if they know nothing now? Think of Michael Rappaport. The Charlottesville lie had been out there from the beginning, and he just now realized it last spring, according to him. He said, I don't know what took him so long, but he did his own research. Oh, that was a lie. What other lies did they tell me? And then he, over and over again.
Well, he felt he was furious because he felt he had been used by the Democrats.
Yeah.
That it was such a big lie. I think he probably felt a little bit embarrassed that he was still promoting the Charlottesville lie. And when he found out, think about what a fool you must feel like if you have any type of shame, any type of conscience, any type of, I'm actually searching for the truth in some way, even if you're not. Because you're so part of your tribe, and all of a sudden you say, well, I'm going to find out if this is true or not. Well, that's not true. This isn't true. Oh, my God. To find out after all that time that Charlottesville, that they're still promoting today in Congress, completely false.
Yeah. But remember the reporters, I think it was 2 reporters at the New York Times, who said, we couldn't believe that the Clintons lied to us.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah.
I forget the story. It may have been the Russian collusion thing. I forget what it was. But they were like, well, we can't believe we were deceived by the Clintons. Now, if you're on the left and you're in a newsroom in the New York Times, you're, oh my gosh, that might be surprising, but they are going to use you, especially at the New York Times, because they know you'll carry the water if they just snap their fingers. And the question would be how many people, feel that way. Michael Rappaport did. And again, how many have the interest to go and find the truth out about the Russian hoax? We followed it from the beginning. But there's a lot of people that did some very good work on this, still doing it right now. As more and more of the truth comes out, the truth is there. People just have to be willing to see it. And that would be the question. We need to go through this process, regardless of how many people are interested. But I think you're getting to a point where more and more people are, because there is more information to find, real information now.
866-90 Red Eye.
This morning's USDA Farm Report is brought to you by House Products. Tested, trusted, guaranteed since 1920.
How to keep your lawn healthy during extreme heat conditions. Kansas State University Extension Cynthia Domagini starts with this tip.
You can increase the mowing height of your turf grass to increase its tolerance for the dry weather. You also want to make sure that when you are watering, you water slowly to allow more of the water to be absorbed.
With heat's impacts on soils, too much water too quickly results in runoff and water waste.
Running shorter irrigation cycles that will allow the water to absorb into the soil better.
Limiting fertilizer applications in periods of drought or approaching drought is important in lawn and garden care, in that
because with more fertilizer, it's going to require more water to support that plant growth that you just promoted.
I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
This report brought to you by Cenex Fuels and Lubes.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90 Red Eye on Red Eye Radio.
We are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Coming up following the bottom of the hour. Well, it's interesting here in Texas as the Democrats on the in the House have walked off the job. Why?
Yeah.
Redistricting. We'll have that story coming up because Governor Abbott late yesterday putting out a notice saying you better show up or your jobs are gone. Mm-hmm. If you don't show up by 3 p.m. today, the Democrats who have taken off from the House, your job is no longer there for you. Ooh.
Citing the state's constitutional powers there, the governor is, and we'll see what their response is within hours here, because that's 3 o'clock today. And what do?
Yeah, it's going to go to court somehow, and they even know it's going to go to court, but I just wonder what's the first ruling. If they say we're not coming back, and they say you're coming back or you lose the job, how does the court rule immediately? What kind of stay do they put on that? And you made a case. You said maybe 48 hours or something. Okay, we give them 48 hours.
The court will say, look, you have to get back, but, we'll give you 48 hours, so 3 p.m. Wednesday, not 3 p.m. Monday. Maybe the court will do that.
We'll have the full story coming up next.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
And we are Red Eye Radio. I'm Gary McNamara. He's Eric Harley. Good morning. All right, so here it is. All heck could break loose. All hell could break loose. In Texas today, the Democrats in the House have taken off. And they took off because the Republicans want to update the districts here in the state of Texas. California also talking about it. Other states are also, but Texas is talking about it, which would give Texas 5 more Republican districts. Now, the interesting thing is the Supreme Court on Friday said in October they're going to hear the case. They're going to hear the case about redistricting, and this goes all the way back to the majority-minority districts and that edict put out by previous courts. And they want to look at everything. Mm-hmm. And they're looking at this saying, wait a minute, by doing that, is that violating the Constitution? They want to get to that question. It's really interesting that they put that question out there. That's the amazing thing. That the Supreme Court came back and said, basically we want you to answer this question. Let me just get it here because it's really, there it is. I got so much stuff here. And the parties are directed to file supplemental briefs addressing the following question: whether the state's intentional creation of this is for the Louisiana case, whether the state's intentional creation of a second majority-minority congressional district violates the 14th or 15th Amendments to the U.S. Constitution. In other words, this is National Review and Dan McLaughlin, asking this question. In other words, is Justice Clarence Thomas right that the court's Voting Rights Act precedents are pushing states to segregate voters by race in ways that are unconstitutional? When does it get to the point that race is not going to be the determining factor of how you vote? Because then everything changes at that point. And you see a greater movement, for example, in Hispanics. So if you come back, let's say now or 10 years from now, and it's 50-50 across the board, or 60-40, but it can go either way. Minority men, 60-40 Republican. Minority women, 60-40 Democrat. All right, because that's what they're talking about.
Right.
Then how can it be constitutional? Because what you're saying is these districts have to include race because people of race vote in different ways. I'm going to love to read that. It may be like doing calculus, because as I've said, I've always had problems with the legal definition of a monopoly. I know it's a different topic, but that's something that I can never get a handle really on any of the major court movements. I'm like, well, I don't get it. What about this? What about that? Well, what legally a monopoly is. And when it is a monopoly, when is it the proper role of the state to split up that monopoly? What is the point that you get to? And it seems to be different with every precedent and based on different industries and companies. And so I have never been able to get a handle on that. The other one I've never been able to get a handle on is the whole racial gerrymandering. I mean, I understand why they're doing it. I don't understand how you decide it.
Well, because so many things can be a qualifier or disqualifier.
Yeah.
And also, so many districts have ever-changing demographics.
Texas.
Yeah. Ask Pete Sessions.
Yeah, he lost his.
His old district, he didn't win that race because that district was changing.
Because here it is, and the Wall Street Journal had just a sentence, the editorial board, that really covered the whole thing for me, which is like, and that's because the precedent basically says you have to gerrymander.
Mm-hmm.
The precedent actually says that. People are against it, but the precedent, based on the Equal Protection Clause, civil rights, whatever, forces you to do that. And they write, this is long overdue that the Supreme Court looks at this, as states are now caught in a vice. If they weigh race too heavily, they can run afoul of the Equal Protection Clause. But if they ignore race, they can be sued for violating Section 2 of the Constitution. Louisiana's House map is a prime example. So on Friday, they broadened the case. In June, the court announced it would rehear a redistricting challenge in Louisiana in the term that begins in October. On Friday, they broadened the case by asking parties to address the question of whether the state's creation of a second majority-minority congressional district violates the 14th or 15th Amendments. And if the second does, why doesn't the first?
Right.
And so the letter we're talking about is because the Democrats in the Texas House have taken off. They're gone. At least 30 of them went to Illinois. Others went to different states. Governor Greg Abbott put this out yesterday. Real Texans do not run from a fight. That's exactly what most of the Texas House Democrats just did. Rather than doing their job and voting on urgent legislation affecting the lives of all Texans, they have fled Texas to deprive the House of a quorum necessary to meet and conduct business. These absences are not merely unintended and unavoidable interruptions in public service, like a sudden illness or a family emergency. Instead, these absences were premeditated for an illegitimate purpose, what one representative called, quote, breaking quorum. Another previously signaled that Democrats would have to go by an extreme measure of a quorum break to stop these bills from happening. In other words, Democrats hatched a deliberate plan not to show up for work for the specific purpose of advocating their duties of their offices and thwarting the chamber's business. That amounts to an abandonment or forfeiture of an elected state office. When the governor calls a special session, our Constitution provides that the legislature shall meet. It's not optional. It's a duty. The absconded Democrat House members were elected to meet and vote on legislation, not to prevent votes that may not go their way. Every session, legislators on both sides of the aisle find themselves on the losing side of a legislative vote. And every session, most of those legislators find their way to disagree agreeably and behave like adults rather than going AWOL. The truancy ends now. The derelict, but just using that word, I'm thinking of Trump. I don't know why, but it's Governor Greg Abbott used that. The derelict Democrat House members must return to Texas and be in attendance when the House reconvenes at 3 p.m. on Monday, August 4th. That's today. For any member who fails to do so, I will invoke the Texas Attorney General opinion to remove the missing Democrats from membership in the Texas House. In that opinion, the Attorney General considered whether Texas law allows for a determination that a legislature has vacated office if they intentionally break quorum. The Attorney General concluded that whether a specific legislator abandoned his or her office such that a vacancy occurred will be a fact question for a court. He further concluded that through the action, a district court may determine that a legislator has forfeited his or her office due to abandonment and can be removed from office, creating a vacancy that empowers me to swiftly fill vacancies under Article 3, Section 13 of the Texas Constitution. In addition to abandoning their offices, these legislators may also have committed felonies. Many absentee Democrats are soliciting funds to evade the fines that they will incur under the House rules. Any Democrat who accepts or agrees to accept such funds to assist in a violation of legislative duties or for the purpose of skipping a vote may have violated bribery laws. And it shows you the part of the law to look at. The same could be true for any other person who offers, confers, or agrees to confer such funds to fleeing Democratic House members. Was that a shot at Pritzker? For offering them refuge?
Yeah. Well, I guess it would be an open shot to anybody because you kind of knew that was going to happen, right?
Yeah. I will use my full extradition authority to demand the return to Texas of any potential out-of-state felons. Sincerely, Greg Abbott. So they're making it clear what they're going to do. They're going to go to court. They're going to say, look, this is the law.
Yeah. Yep.
And so he won't do it. The court will do it. He'll go to the court and say, these legislators have abandoned their post. Think about it. Could you do that as a judge? We talk about the three, branches of government that exist in states too. The legislative, the judicial, and the executive. Could the governor just walk off and say, I'm not going to do my job for a while? Or would there be a problem with it?
Oh, there'd be a huge problem with it. Yeah.
Could a judge do that? Just say, I'm going to walk off my job because I feel like I'm going to go to another state and I'm not going to do anything.
Right.
Why should a legislator be able to do it?
They shouldn't.
What if they're protecting democracy?
Yeah.
You didn't buy that.
By not fulfilling their sworn duty.
by not fulfilling their sworn duty to participate in the democracy.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically what you're looking at, right?
Right. By not participating in the democracy, we are saving democracy.
That's right. Running like cowards. That's democracy. Democracy flees in the darkness.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's going to be an interesting day. I won't get much sleep.
I know. I expect some kind of response somewhere in the next couple of hours. Deadline is 3 p.m. today. By the way, he didn't give them a couple of days. You got Monday, 3 p.m. Expect you to be there.
Why not?
This is an emergency session, by the way. We don't have for those listening outside of Texas, we don't have a full-time legislature. It's only part-time. And this is an emergency session that the governor called back to take care of some weed and other things.
Yes, some weed. And apparently the weed isn't causing the problem right now.
Yeah, THC thing.
Right, the THC thing.
But also there were some things that they needed to take care of. The floods and all of that. There were some legislative items that really needed the attention of these lawmakers. But we'll see how it works out.
866-90 Red Eye.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90 Red Eye.
We are Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. I'm really, really happy that Governor Abbott did what he did, and I hope he follows through on it and really gives no leeway to those Democratic House members, because it's sort of become a joke almost in Texas. As soon as I saw it, you and I both laughed because we've been through it so many times.
Right.
It hasn't just happened once. When they don't like something, they take off and they go to another state.
Yep.
Can't do that. Nope. It stops now. You can't do that anymore. The law was written specifically. You can't do it. Stop it. Don't break the law.
And it will be interesting to see because it doesn't sound like if his interpretation of the state constitution, I don't see Governor Abbott being wrong on this, by the way, of him misinterpreting the state constitution. I think it's a very clear power that was given to the governor through an amendment of the state constitution for things like this, that the people's business has to be done. You can't just run from it. And if you do, then he can take care of it with this remedy. So we'll see what the courts do. Mm-hmm. We'll know within hours.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.